Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Foliage. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. So today we are talking about another plant. I really love this plant. I was searching for this plant for a very long time. Probably after a year or so, I finally found this plant. Now this plant belongs to the family of Maranthaceae, the same what our other Calatheas belong to. And this plant is called as Ctenanthe Setosa Grey Star. There is another Ctenanthe Setosa. I have already made a video on it. I'll put the link in the description below. You can check it out. Now both of them have the same name as Ctenanthe Setosa, but this one is Grey Star. The reason behind this is because of its leaves. As you can see, the leaves are very beautiful. They have this very grayish green in color. That's why it gets its name as Grey Star. And the leaves are also very different compared to the Ctenanthe Setosa. I'll put the image on the screen as well, so you will be able to see a little bit of difference in the leaves. But this is an extremely beautiful plant. Unlike other Calatheas which tend to grow very bushy, these guys have this very long stem and then they have a leaf on it which tends to look absolutely beautiful. So as you can see, our other Calatheas, they are more they grow more bushy, but this tends to grow more with those longer stems. It looks absolutely beautiful when you tend to grow it indoor. You can grow it outdoor as well, but you have to ensure if you're growing it outdoor, there is a good amount of humidity, anywhere above 60%. You can even use the pebble tray method, or the one that I tend to do, keep a plastic box beneath with a little bit of water, which can give it a little bit of humidity. Now talking about the soil, I tend to use the same soil mix. I'll put it up on the screen. It is a mix of coco peat, perlite, sand and a little bit of garden soil. So a mix of this is going to be a very good potting mix for our Calatheas or for Ctenanthes. All of these varieties, they prefer the same type of soil mix. It has to be loose, it has to be porous, it has to be airy, and it should be a well draining soil. So the container that you're using should have a drain hole so that the excess water can go out, because if the water is going to stay in the pot, then the plant will have a root rot. Now the watering is very important whenever you tend to see that the upper layer of soil is dry. Now I usually do not show you guys, but today I'm going to show. So as you can see, the upper layer of soil is dry. Now what I tend to do is I let the water sit in the bucket. I do not use direct tap water. As I said, direct tap water contains a lot of minerals. It contains a lot of chlorine which can damage the plant, especially Calatheas, Maranthas, all the plants from the Maranthaceae family. They do not like a lot of minerals in the water, or they do not like a high amount of chlorine. So I let the water sit, the water gets stable, all the chlorine tends to get evaporated from the water after 24 to 48 hours, and then I tend to use that water. So once I see that the upper layer around 1 to 2 inches of the soil is dry, I go ahead and water it, and I do a complete watering until the water starts passing through the drain hole. As you can see, my soil is well draining. Immediately the water starts to leave the pot, the soil is completely wet, and this is how the soil should be for your Calathea or the Ctenanthe. Now right now it's very windy, that's why the plant is tilting, because it's very windy over here. Otherwise the plant tends to stand straight, but because it's very windy, the stem is very fragile, it's very thin, so it tends to move around. I usually place it in a location where there is not strong wind, otherwise the plant can bend quite often. Now talking about fertilizers, do not add any fertilizers during the winters, because the plant tends to go dormant. Even the watering should be a little bit less. Whenever you see around 2 inches of the soil is dry, that's when you go ahead and water. Do not water it too much, because during winters the plant tends to go dormant. If you want to add fertilizers, you can do it during the summers, which is their active growing period. Now bugs do attack the plant. They always attack on the underneath, so it's always better to turn the leaves and check. Usually when the bugs attack, you will tend to see a lot of spots on the upper part of the leaf. Now this is not spot. Probably when I purchased the plant, there was something that came in from the seller, so it's not any kind of bugs, but you might have seen in my other videos as well, you will tend to see a lot of spots that indicates that there are spider mites. Now this plant does not have any spider mites, so the leaves look a little bit more fresh. Now talking about the light, again, when you check the undertone, you can see it has a dark underleaf. Whenever any plant that has a dark underleaf, do not expose them to direct sunlight. They will get burnt. The reason why they have this opaque leaves is because they want to capture whatever light they tend to get in their natural habitat. This indicates that the plant tends to grow in an environment where there is not much light. So you have to only offer indirect but bright light, or you can even keep it in indirect light. Even if the light is slightly low, it's absolutely fine. The plant will still do quite well. All of the plants that have this purple undertone or darker undertones, you can keep it in a slightly low light conditions as well. But when I say low light, it doesn't mean that it has to be completely dark. There has to be some sort of light, because every plant requires a little bit of light. Now talking about propagation, it's very simple to propagate. You can see I already have another stem growing. I can easily separate it, but I'm not going to do it because I want this plant to grow very bushy in this spot. So I'm going to leave it as it is, but you can do a separation with the rhizomes. You might have seen in my other video, the rhizome tends to look like a small tuber that tends to grow in the side. If that has roots, you can separate it and plant it once again. Over here, as you can see, this is a new leaf that is starting to come up. So that's how they tend to grow. So if I have to separate this, all I have to do is take out the plant and take this portion out with the roots, and then we're gonna have a new plant. But I'm just going to leave this as it is. Now overall, this plant is a little difficult for beginners, because it is going to be a little difficult for you to understand, especially if you are from a very dry environment. So I wouldn't say that it's a very beginner friendly plant. It takes a little bit of practice to grow Calatheas, especially if you are from a very dry environment. You can grow it indoors, provided you have a humidifier, or you have a good amount of humidity indoor as well. You can grow it wherever there is a good amount of light, indirect light, and do not keep it under the air conditioning vent, or do not keep it closer to the heater. Otherwise the leaves will get crisp. They will start to lose water, because whenever there is an air conditioning vent or a heater vent, if the plant is kept just beneath that, then it tends to evaporate all the water from the leaves. So you do not want to keep the plant over there. Now this plant is not toxic because it belongs to the Maranthaceae family. It can be safely kept around your garden. Even if you have kids or pets, this plant is not toxic, so it's absolutely fine to keep it around. So guys, that's all about it. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep planting.